iPhone 17 versus iPhone 12 speed test. You know how we roll. Coming up right now. Let's go. So what is up, guys? Nick here, helping you to master your technology, and let's go ahead and begin with a boot up test between the iPhone 17 and the iPhone 12 in 3, 2, go, and see which one can get there first. Now, shockingly, some of these old iPhones have been booting up first over the base newer iPhones and even the Pros. So we'll see what happens here. We are talking about the 2020. I call this the pandemic iPhone because this came out when COVID was launching and it was pandemic, and Apple still had to launch their iPhones though. And that's how I always remembered iPhone 12, because that was the season where not everybody's minds were on iPhones, but my mind is on the fact that right now, why did the iPhone 12 boot up faster than the iPhone 17? Very strange, both on the latest 26.0.1. I understand they're in a newer beta, but for now, we're on 26.0.1 on both of them. You can see that big change, Dynamic Island, and you have a notch there, so you're going to jump over to that setup if you decide to do the upgrade. All right, guys, so let's go ahead and take a look at their biometrics performance. So they both do have Face ID. Let's go ahead and take a look here. And you'll see the newer iPhone does have it actually has the always on display. So that's a change. Let's go ahead and look again. And we'll go like that. I got to change my focus mode because I just went into a different wallpaper. Got to put on the YouTube focus mode. But you've seen right there that Face Unlock, besides the 60 hertz animation not looking quite as smooth, it does go in pretty nice on both of them. So that's not a substantial difference. While we're here on the lock screens, let's just go ahead and see how fast they open the cameras there on the lock screen. A little bit faster there on the iPhone 17. We'll do the dedicated camera test later, but you'll see a little bit slower there on that one to respond on the 12. So yeah, even unlocking into your phone, this will be a little bit of a noticeable upgrade here. Smoother on that visual fly-in that they're doing here on 26. So you see that like smooth flying effect. But also the camera launch from here, if you use this, is going to be a bit snappier. And you're just going to get more consistent visual effects here for iOS on the iPhone 17. So I think it's a good upgrade just in terms of like animation look, just because you have 120 hertz ProMotion, which makes the software look smoother. Generally speaking though, going through the iPhone 17 presents you with what feels like a Pro iPhone. Mostly the super smooth effects from ProMotion makes the phone just scroll faster. A lot of people say they don't notice until they come to a ProMotion, then they go back, then they notice, whoa, that phone was actually a little bit slower looking. And iOS runs good even on 60 hertz phones, but it doesn't work as smooth as these ProMotion models. So I will say that I'm pretty happy with the overall general performance here of just kind of navigating through. I did notice in pretty much all these iPhones, if I go ahead and click and add control here, when I scroll through here, it gets a little choppy for some reason. I think it's because loading up all these icons, but it's just a little weird that's kind of choppy on pretty much all the iPhones. It's just not un-Apple-like. But if we bounce through here, you'll see that looks pretty good. But let's take a look at the several-year-older iPhone by comparison. So I can already see that when I'm scrolling through there, it's just jumping a little bit more choppy looking. You might not notice this if you've been using your 12 for a long time, but if you do kind of like compare it to a newer phone, it does become a little bit more apparent. And so even and this is why I'm concluding this section in speed, the speed you see right there was a delay in me pulling down that page, and these bounce effects are a little bit slower as well. And so when I add a control here, let's add a control, you'll see just how long that took to respond there. If I scroll down, you see that loading of these is taking a bit longer. Now, of course, a lot of people say, well, 1 to 2 seconds, I'll keep my phone, Nick. Hey, you can do whatever you please. I'm just making a speed test, but I'm here to say, though, that 1 to 2 seconds might be nothing, but when you're trying to go about your day and you got to do something and then something just lags or delays you, that starts to add up. Like over the day, it might be micro little jitters here and there, but to me, they start to add up. Combine that with the fact that the iPhone 12 does have a weaker battery. To me, it just makes a 17 a no-brainer upgrade, even just for general operations. Let's go ahead and head into the app test now. But before we do that, let's confirm what we're looking at. We're looking at an Apple A19 chip. It's not listed here, but it's an A19 base chip. It's not a Pro or anything like that, but it's 4.26 gigahertz We have the Apple A14 Bionic chip, and that's at 2.99 gigahertz. So this is nearly almost double the clock speed of this chip. Also, the nanometers are better on the 17. But if you look here at the memory, we are looking at 8 gigabytes of RAM versus 4. So we are doubling that. But what's cool is that the 12 is still updated to the latest 26.0.1. Now, just looking at the specs, you should already know it's going to be faster, but by how much? We're going to go ahead and close those out on both, and we're going to begin this app test here now. So let's go ahead and show you everything is officially closed. Then we'll go into calendar. And you can see mostly the animation was the difference there. Some people say, well, you know, I'll keep my phone over a couple of animations. It doesn't really matter to me. When we start with these basic rows, you don't see a huge difference besides maybe a half a second delay on a 12. But when we start getting the third-party apps and RAM management, you're going to see. Let's go to ChatGPT. And that's going to pop open first there on the 12 for some reason. Let's go in here into Gemini. And no, I'm not making an excuse. The 12 was faster. It could have been my finger. It could have not been. The fact of the matter is sometimes even an older phone can launch faster than a newer phone. And I'll give credit where credit is due. Let's go ahead and close Grok because I got a little bit of a weird thing. We'll rerun Grok here. That looked about the same, not a substantial difference. Copilot. I will say that the AI generation within these, while they are server-based, because you have faster network performance and faster chip, even though it's not based on Apple's phone itself, those AI applications still will generate the responses faster on the newer iPhone. Let's go into Amazon. So if you do rely on AI, you also have Apple Intelligence. And look at that lag coming out of Amazon. That was atrocious there on the right. Let's go into Groupon. And you can see faster on the left. And you might think, well, newer phone faster. Yes, but also, that's pretty obvious. But also the iPhone 12, you know, the chips now, they're just getting higher clock speed. So what that means is I think even in the long term, the iPhone 17 will still be like a faster phone down the line than the 12 is now. Because they doubled the RAM. RAM is a big deal in computers and phones and tablets to keep your thing running smooth for a long time, to keep your product. Let's go ahead and go to that trigger. You've seen that touch was at the same time, but there was a delay there. Look, we could already be into the game while just waiting. So gamers, 100%. There's no doubt about it. You're going to want to go to the newer phone if you like to play your mobile games easily. Let's go into Subway Surfers. Now for casual games, it's probably not the biggest deal. You can see a couple of seconds here and there. Not a substantial deal for a casual game. So for those of you playing your quick time killing games, these are not going to be probably the biggest deal in the world. But for those of you who do like to play some a little bit more graphically intensive games, it's a pretty obvious one. Look, I'm already playing these games before the 12 can even launch it there. I didn't give that a fair chance. Let's hit resume. But you've seen even that delay for the plane to come in there was just a little bit slower. You see, boom, right in there on the iPhone 17. Let's go into Free Fire. But I think one of the biggest, most noticeable changes has got to be ProMotion. I've been waiting so long for that, and it's so apparent when you go to any previous iPhone base model now, how different this is. Some people say, well, only tech people notice that. I don't know. I feel like even regular people notice it's smoother. Might not be the biggest deal to them, but they're probably still going to notice it's a smoother, faster phone because I just see comments like, I love my 17. It's just so smooth. Let's go in and performs great. Let's go into Call of Duty. I just think this is a great value year. Just hands down. 256 gigs when you got the iPhone 12 multiple years ago was starting at 64. That was like terribly low storage by comparison. However, I do think as time is going on, people are starting to do a lot more photos, videos, continuing to increase their smartphone usage. And now you do need 4 times the storage, which is what you get on the iPhone 17. And when you're putting on 4K 60 cameras, center stage, there are going to be a lot of selfies being taken. The iPhone 17 needed that upgrade, and I'm glad it got it. So once again, the 17 in the lead by about 10 percentage points. They are downloading the same resources, so this is pretty fair anyway. And the 17 will finish that task. 50, 60, 80, 90, 100. We just finished the first run there, so now comes the 12. And so the 17 has won this battle. This might not open though fully because I'm logged in here. We'll see what happens, but the 17 has substantially won that battle. But also in the gaming department, the iPhone 12 heats up a little bit too much for my comfort these days. So definitely, and I quit the game on this side so this one could log in, but you could see just how far that was behind. The 12 heats up a bit too much for me. I can even feel it through some cases. That's how warm it can get. It's not like burning your hand warm, but it's definitely like uncomfortably warm. Similar to what I feel on like a 15 Pro. That phone gets ridiculous warm too, the 15 Pro. But we're not talking about that here. Let's go into Geekbench 6. Launch faster on the iPhone 12. I do think that is related to optimization though. You can say it's an excuse, but Geekbench is always like, it doesn't even have the name of the CPU yet here. You could tell it hasn't been updated properly for the new phone yet. Let's go into speed test. After about 3 to 6 months, that application tends to have the right name. It tends to load fast on even the newer phone. So we'll go in iMovie and faster for the iPhone 17. So you didn't probably see anything that was too shocking here. You probably expected the 17 to win, but the iPhone 12 I think runs fine for a basic iPhone use. But you need some patience with it. You really do. Like it's kind of slow these days by comparison to what is available. Even a lot of mid-ranger budget phones will absolutely destroy the iPhone 12 in like just regular animation speed, app openings. But some of those phones do have some pretty horrible software and not quite as polished even as the iPhone 12. So it's nice to see you have this polished 26.0.1, but if it doesn't run super fast, it kind of feels like a little bit of a deterrent, honestly. So let me know your thoughts on the speed test, the app test here. Which one do you think, the better question is this: do you think that it's time to get rid of your iPhone 12? That's what I really want to know. I want to hear this feedback on what you're planning to do here, because it helps others decide if it's time to, because some people just want to wait it out. They seriously are like, I can deal with this. It's just fun to talk about. So let's discuss it down below. Let's get on to the RAM management test. Okay, so let's run through the 17. And what you're going to notice is with the 8 gigs of RAM that was introduced on the iPhone 16, Apple has finally made these base model iPhones pretty competitive to even the pro level phones in RAM management. So this is great. Absolutely phenomenal for people that want to not spend $1,000, but they expect their iPhone to perform really well. That's this phone. You've seen right there. I couldn't tell a difference between that and a pro model iPhone. But will the iPhone 12 showcase why 4 gigabytes of RAM is starting to get a little bit long, a little bit old at this point. So far, not a big issue, but the reloads will start at Free Fire. So it literally held about 6 applications, and now it has to shut some things down. It simply doesn't have the memory to continue to hold these apps. Now you could say, well, I don't open multiple apps at a time. Yes, that might be true. You might be only in one app at a time because iOS doesn't really allow for split screening, or you might just use one app at a time generally for real world use. But here's the deal. Let's say you are doing something let's say you're doing an AI chat in Gemini, for example. You're in social media, you're watching a YouTube video, you want to go back to like a message or something or a game that you were playing, you're going to have to wait for it to load. And to me, while that might seem like a first world problem, the problem is that the iPhone 12 is just going to kind of slow you down in our modern era. But at the same time, again, it's still functional. And I always found that that's super impressive about the iPhones is that they can be 5-6 years old and they're still totally functional. So yes, the iPhone 12, and I like the iPhone 12's red color. I also like this design. It's thin, it's light, super thin cameras right there. This phone is still absolutely gorgeous in 2025, but it's not super fast. We're doing speed, so I got to call it as I see it. And you see in the RAM management, the 17 miles ahead. And here are our final Geekbench scores. You can see a 3600 single core for the iPhone 17. And on the right, that's over 1600 points. Well, just about 1600 points better than the iPhone 12. 4581, the multi-core is where the real jump happens. And as you see, this scores nearly as well as previous iPads and 16 Pro Maxes. So it's a serious jump in performance. Whether you're coming from a 12, 13, 14, or even 15, I think the 17 is a serious jump for all of those people coming from those phones. Let's go ahead and take a look now at 3D Mark. We'll do a quick Wildlife Extreme test to see how graphically they perform. And this is where I think you're going to see even much bigger upgrades to the iPhone 17 is in the graphics. So I'll be back when these are done running through this extreme graphics test. And so I was not incorrect in my thoughts here, because 28.7 FPS is a big smooth difference between 12 FPS. I mean, that would almost be the difference between a game running laggy and one running smooth. You can see, surprisingly, the iPhone 12, even being 5 years old, still scores better than 40% of other iPhone 12s. But according to all other devices, there's still 34% of devices out there that are slower. But that does mean that 66% of devices are faster than the iPhone 12, which is more than half of the market. So it's time to upgrade. You can see over here, though, that 17, while an impressive performer, it's still being beat by about 12% of devices out there. So it's not the fastest phone, but it is an incredibly quick one nonetheless. There's the iPhone 17 Pro Max still does better than the iPhone 17, as does the 17 Pro. The Air maybe even as well, because it does have the A19 Pro chipset in those. So last thing I'm going to do before we get up out of here is I'm going to go ahead and launch the cameras. Let's bring in my iPhone 17 Pro base model. This is going to be, well, it's not base model, it's a smaller model. Let's take a picture of the camera right there, and see how this goes. 3, 2, go. You can see that was faster for the iPhone 17. We'll do it again. 3, 2, go. Oh yeah, that was pretty obvious. And you could see you can't zoom optically. It's just kind of a digital zoom here 5 times. But the iPhone 12 actually still does have a pretty good camera. I'm so happy with that camera, but it's just not quite as good as the ultra wide on this phone or the zooming in effects. Also, the front facing camera, if you do a lot of selfies, is one of the biggest upgrades of these two, 100%. So you've seen it here, the 17 versus the 12. You're getting camera upgrades. Speed upgrades are super apparent as well. This is so noticeable. You've seen it throughout this speed test. Smoothing out the display with the 120 hertz. Faster graphics performance, faster CPU performance, faster lock screen performance, faster general performance, all across the board. Besides the boot up, I don't know why the 12 won, but it did. The iPhone 17, even network performance and Bluetooth connections, Wi-Fi performance, also faster. The 17 is a no-brainer upgrade when it comes to the phone itself. Now, if you're looking for something incredibly different, like a folding phone, a triple camera phone, you got to look elsewhere. But if you're just base to base, you're going base iPhone to base iPhone, 100%. Go for the upgrade when you're ready. I'm just saying, I recommend it based on what we've seen in the results here. Thumbs up if you enjoyed it. Subscribe if you haven't already. I will catch you all in the next episode. Nick here. Be sure to be well, and peace.